Hello, everybody. It's just turning the 6 o'clock hour. I see we have a few more people um, getting into the chat room here, so we'll get things started. I want to thank you all for coming tonight and joining us here online. My name is Jennifer. I'm going on my 9th year as a gardener at Ben Franklin, and I'm privileged to be able to serve on the Garden Operating Committee this year as chair. The 2021 season marks a special anniversary for us at the garden. It's going to be the 40th season of operation. To say the least, the 2020 year was trying, so we're all looking forward to 2021 and the success that the garden will bring. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and we ask that you keep your mics muted and your cameras off. Causes a little bit of less distraction during the meeting. If you have questions, there is the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you click on there, you can ask questions, and at the end of the meeting, we're going to go through and read all the questions and answer them for you. Anything that you think you may miss, we will have all the important information and links in the main newsletter that will be coming out shortly. And many of these links are on our website. And we're also, just so you know, we're recording the meeting, and you will be able to view it later on YouTube. So one thing that was new this year was our online applications. We've gotten a lot of great feedback about it. A lot of people liked it. And I want to thank Alicia. She set that up for us this year. It was a lot of work, and it went really smoothly, having the PayPal and everything. And so we've set up online a survey that you could fill out if you'd like to give us some feedback about the process, how things went for you, if the links worked, if there's a better way for us to lay it out. If you loved it and it was perfect, let us know. We'd appreciate that. The garden committee, the garden subcommittees, and the garden coordinator, along with volunteers, have been working hard throughout the fall and winter season to make this year a success. We've been searching and applying for grants, planning fundraising, ordering soil, replacing tools, and preparing for opening. Many of the committee members will be speaking to you tonight so that you can put a face with the name. The committee will be working with many of you on projects when you're volunteering, and they're out in the garden every day, and they're more than willing and happy to help you if you have questions or issues. So now I will turn things over to the Vice Chair, Jordan Abbott. He's not only the Vice Chair this year, he's also heading up the Finance Committee. So he's going to let you guys know some things that are going on this year.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm trying to run the meeting as well. So yeah, so my name is Jordan Abbott. I'm the vice chair of the committee here, and just want to update everyone on, let me resume sharing. Yeah, just want to update everyone on what the Finance Committee and Grants Committee has been up to. So long story short, it's been a busy off season. We've been trying to chase down as many grant opportunities as possible. A big thanks go out to the Grants Committee, which consists of Garden Committee members, as well as Mary Ellen Sustak, Jennifer King, and Libby Lehman. As folks are probably well aware of by now, we've started fundraising for a new pavilion, and thanks to generous donations, we're more than a quarter funded. Please consider donating to our IOBI campaign today, as well as sharing it with those close to you. And your support will help us bring more events for all ages to the garden. And also, just a side note, hopefully gone will be our parking lot concerts and stuff like that. So additionally, we've secured funding for soil improvements and are in the running for a composter, as well as funding for other infrastructure improvements that will benefit all gardeners. So we look forward to sharing future wins with the gardeners, and hopefully you'll see some of our hard work once the gates open for the season. And, with that, I'm going to post some links in the chat for the IOB campaign, as well as you can see here, we'll touch on it a little bit later, but Tomato Monster, that's one of our fundraisers, as well as raffle tickets coming up here. But like I say, these other things will be shared in our events section. So with that, I will pass it to Amanda.
Trying to get myself unmuted. Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Porcelli. I'm on a few different subcommittees. I'm on fundraising subcommittee and communication subcommittee. So that's things like Facebook, different events we're doing, marketing. This is only my second year at the garden, so I'm very new. Last season was my first year ever gardening. So it's definitely been an experience. Everybody here is super helpful. Like Jen was saying, if you ever have questions or anything, be sure to reach out. So I wanted to talk about the honey and jam and the cookbook sale. So like Jordan was saying, the Monster Heirloom sale is going to be coming on May 22nd. And that day, we're also going to be having honey, jam, and cookbooks for sale as well from people who added their own recipes. The honey and the cookbooks are $10, and the jam is $3 for a quarter pint and $6 for a half a pint, and that's red raspberry. It's delicious. And the black raspberry is going to be for sale later in July. And then also, just a really quick note, we're going to be having Poppin' Water for sale in the refrigerator this summer. The refrigerator is locked, so you need to find the key at the end of the tool aisle. It will be hanging up by the hand tools. And I think that's it. Not sure who's next. Oh, Kathy. Kathy's next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kathy Delaney. This is my 4th year at the garden and my first year as a committee member. I am on the marketing committee, the fundraising committee, and the communications committee. I'm going to talk a little bit about a company store that we opened to sell t-shirts and sweatshirts and things. So we've designed a new logo in celebration of the 40th anniversary as a community garden. And so we opened a store where you can purchase t-shirts, sweatshirts, caps, tote bags. There's a variety of different styles and colors available. They have the new logo on the front, and then we have a tagline on the back that says, Grow Local, Cleveland, Ohio. We are also selling the t-shirts that we've sold in the past. It's the Cleveland Landmark t-shirt. The store is opening. There's a link that you've probably already been sent and will be sent to you again. And the store will be open starting today through Sunday, May 23rd. And after your orders are all, you'll just pay online by credit card. And then the orders will be available for pickup at the garden on some designated dates and times. So all that information is actually on the website, the garden store website, and then you'll be emailed updated information. So I guess that's it. I'm looking forward to a good summer at the garden, and I am going to pass this over to Jim Casper.
Hello, I'm Jim Casper. I've been at the garden for over 30 years. This is my first year on the committee, and I'm going to go over the events we're going to be having at the garden this year. This is not totally inclusive. We're probably going to be adding a few things yet, but this is what we have scheduled so far. The very first thing is the garden opening on May 22nd, weather permitting. That means if Greg gets everything put together and tilled and we get all the stakes up and everything like that. And also on that same day, we'll be doing the Monster Heirloom Plant Sale. And that goes from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. The following day on Sunday, May 23rd, we're going to do a tree planting ceremony, supplying a Ben Franklin tree. It's kind of a tree named after the namesake of the garden. And we'll have a little bit on that blurb about that particular species of tree. And then that'll be at 1 o'clock. And then around 2 o'clock, we're going to have a concert with a bluegrass band called Small Craft Advisory. And the next thing on the schedule is a terrarium workshop, and that is scheduled for June 19th at 10 o'clock. There'll be more details on that coming up. And then on July 10th, we're going to do a kids painting workshop, and that'll also start at 10 o'clock. That'll be followed by our the garden walk, which is July 10th and 11th. And so that people will be wandering around through the garden and enjoying our place. On July 17th, we'll be doing the ice cream social. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. Then we're going to have a open house and birthday celebration for our garden on July 31st. There's more info to come on that as well. Then like every year, the Cuyahoga County Fair is August 10th through 15th. And hopefully the gardeners will be able to submit things for that, win a bunch of blue ribbons, and it'll be glorious. The annual meeting and harvest party will be Saturday, September 11th. That'll be from 12 noon until 3 p.m. And then the saddest day of the year is the garden closing on October 16th at 4 o'clock. For information, the committee meetings are the third Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Information for meeting place will be posted on our website and in our newsletter. Anyone can attend, and we're hoping to go back to in-person meetings. Currently, we have been doing them on Zoom, just like you're watching right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia.
Hi folks, I'm Alicia Polachek. I have been gardening for about 8 years now. This is my, I think, 7th year on the gardening committee. I am the treasurer for this year. I am also the communications chair. So all the communications are coming from me. A couple things that I want to mention is that outside the shed, we put up that, what's it called? Corkboard last year. We're going to utilize that again this year for a lot of the garden communications. We're going to put our newsletter up there. So if you don't get the newsletter, you can look at the hard copy that will be up there. We're also going to try something new this year of Ask a Gardener. We're going to put index cards up on the corkboard and say if you have a question, you know, about, I don't know, something in the garden that you're growing, you can ask it and put it in a little baggie, and we'll leave it there, and any gardener can walk up and write an answer on it. If you want to put your contact information, you can always put that as well. So we're going to develop that, look in the newsletters for that. One of the things I'm going to mention is we have 2 different things. So a lot of everybody is in our emails. So you get monthly newsletters for new gardeners. You'll get that every single month that has different types of things in it. So the newsletter will contain things such as, you know, I've been doing recipes in there, different kind of workshops that, say, for example, the Master Gardeners run, just garden news that we have. If you are not receiving the newsletter, if you can email the communications at benfranklincommunitygarden.org. Message that, and then I can work with you and figure out what's going on and why you're not getting it. I've learned that some servers are bouncing back the emails. The other thing is the Remind. Remind is something that we utilize. It's a text messaging service app. What you'll do is just go on your phone, the short code there, 81010. You're going to text the @BFC Garden 2. And what will happen is you will get the messages. We do not spam you. We don't spam you or sell your email address. And we don't do that with your phone number as well with the remind messages. The only messages that come out are something such as like when we open the garden, you will get a text message showing that the garden's open. So there's that. If you do not have text messaging on your phone, you can send a blank email to bfcgarden2@mail.remind.com. Both of this information is on our website. So if you go to our website, you are able to click on this and you can see both of these. And with that, I am turning it over to Jennifer.
Oh, Alicia, you gonna do the straw sales?
I guess I forgot that. Sorry about that. All right. So we have our straw sales. In your application, you will notice that we mentioned the straw. For those that are not familiar with straw, a lot of people do straw as a weed barrier. We like to grow weeds at our garden. So it's advisable to get something down unless, you know, you like to pull weeds. So we have it where we have straws available. It's $7 a bale. It is delivered to the garden. You will be responsible once it gets to the garden. You will have to move it to your plot yourself. We will have it sitting there. I will send an email out to let you know what day it's coming. You can be there that morning. You can come and get your straw and take it to your plot. Advisable, we found that most gardeners take about 3 or 4 bales if they have a full plot. If you have a half plot, about 1.5 to 2 bales will cover it. And that is about, you know, about that much thickness on there. Before I mention this, you do want to put something underneath your straw. You put newspaper down, you can put a little thick layer down on there. If you don't put the straw down, you are more or less going to go grass. If you are wanting to get straw, the order form link is actually on the website. You just click that, fill that out. If you're making, I only accept cash or check. So there is no electronic payment this year. It's only going to be cash or check. You make the check out to me with the straw in the memo line, and you can drop it off at my house or you can mail it. Any questions, my contact information is there, so if you need to be. All right, now I'm turning it over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Alicia. All right, so now is for the exciting part of the evening here, the rules. Everyone has received a copy of the rules. I think you've all been able to review them. If you need to reference them at any time, they will be available at the garden up on one of the bulletin boards on the shed. And they're also available online on our website. Just click on the rules button and they'll pop up for you if there's anything you need to reference. When I first started gardening, I thought, wow, these are a lot of rules. You know, you see it at the time with the paper applications, 2 full sides and a small font. However, many of these things are just common courtesy, but what's common to one person might not be common to another, which is why we have to write them. So just to know if there's any violations that you can lose your plot or be excluded from the program in the next year. But some things I want to talk about though, our garden hours are Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. Sundays from 9 to 4, and holidays are from 11 till 4 o'clock. The only holidays we have are Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. All those days we will be closing at 4 o'clock. Just a word of advice, if you're there on Sundays, you know, remember they close at 4. We've had several people locked in at 4 o'clock. One lady had to call her husband and bring a ladder to get her out. So, you know, just make sure you're keeping an eye for when Greg comes to lock up. He does check, but end of July, August, when everything's tall, it can be hard to see somebody in the very back corner. Another thing I want to talk about is parking. Parking usually isn't an issue, except for busy times at the garden, which is moving in and moving out of the garden. If you're new gardeners, it's going to sound kind of foreign to you, but when you come to the first time meeting, you'll be able to see how things are laid out. Inside the garden, there is only 3 parking spots, and those are reserved for people with handicap placards. Those run along the fence line, and you'll see they have the signs there. Underneath the pin oak tree, there are three parking spots. Those are for loading and unloading only. You cannot stay there, especially if it's the first 2 weeks opening. Many people are going to want to pull in there. You know, we ask that you pull in, load up a cart, you know, take your car out, you know, empty the carts at your garden and bring the cart back so the next people can come in. We have a very small area for parking there, and you have to allow room so that people can turn around. So that's why you can only fit 3 cars in that spot for loading and unloading, and we ask that you don't stay there. As far as bikes at the garden, you are allowed to bring your bikes to the garden. We do have a bike rack near the shed where you can lock it up. I would not recommend leaving it near any of the gates unattended or unlocked. You may bring your bikes into the garden. We just ask that you don't ride them through the garden. There's kids around, there's you know, gardeners pulling carts and things, so it's really not a good environment to ride the bikes, especially on the pathways and in the grass where you can fall and hurt yourself. Gardener conduct at the garden. We ask that everybody is respectful to each other, treat people the way you'd like to be treated, not to use foul language or have offensive behavior. We ask that you stay out of other gardeners' plots unless they invite you in. It'd just be like going into somebody else's backyard. You kind of look at it like that, how you would treat your neighbor. At the garden, we have tools for all the gardeners to use so that you don't have to bring them back and forth. We ask that you return them to the shed. You're not allowed to take them off the premises. Just return them when you're done. Be mindful that other people might be waiting to use them. It's usually not a problem, but again, when we first open, sometimes things get a little bit busy. You are not allowed to sell any produce from the garden. We're a part of the Summer Sprout program where we receive plants and seeds for free, so we're not allowed to sell anything at the garden. Things you're not allowed to plant at the garden are sunflowers or corn. They attract even more squirrels and they will shade your neighbor's plot. We ask that you don't grow anything invasive, things like mint, morning glories, those types of things don't belong in the garden because they will reseed themselves and keep coming back. We ask that you don't use preen. Preen is a herbicide that keeps weeds from growing. It will also keep things from growing like carrots and beans. So if you use preen in your plot this year and someone else gets your plot next year, they won't be able to grow seeds there. We ask that you don't use products like Sevin, insecticides, and chemicals. We do allow, well, I'll be talking about it later, we do allow some forms of insect control, but we ask that you don't use a lot of chemicals in the garden. Number one, it's not good for anybody. And number two, we have beehives at the garden, and we also are a monarch way station. So we don't want to kill our pollinators, those insects out there that are really helping us. Another thing at the garden, you can use a weed blocker material as a mulch, but it must be water permeable. It can't be the heavy plastic that the water sits on. At the garden, we'll have some communal supplies. Sometimes we'll get in leaf humus. We'll have compost that you can add to your gardens. When we get into plants, we'll have up signs that will say how much each gardener is allowed to have for their plots. And we ask that you read those signs and that you follow it. We only have enough to share with everybody. Sometimes it's only a little bit, but we do ask that you respect that. I do want to mention, if you do find yourself in a situation of conflict at the garden, let the garden coordinator know or a committee member, and we can help you out. If something would happen as far as an accident or a misunderstanding with someone, the garden does have a formal incident report that you can fill out. There are paper copies available at the garden. There's also copies available online near our rules, at the bottom of our rules, so that we can put things in writing and we can work things out and come to a good conclusion. The committee wants everybody to have an enjoyable, successful season, and we don't look forward to voting anyone out. It never really happens, so I don't think it'll be a problem this year either. Please show kindness and courtesy. Don't steal from anyone, and honor your volunteer commitments. And everybody will have a good season. We also have some COVID procedures. These are basically the same things that you do every day since we had the pandemic. So if you're not feeling well, please don't come to the garden. If you're going to be working close to other people, if in common areas, in closed spaces, you should be wearing a mask. Practice social distancing as you can. We have the hand washing stations. We have soap and water and plenty of paper towels available. We have things to sanitize your tools. Last year, I feel the committee set up very good procedures as far as everybody being able to come in and garden safely. And we didn't have any issues. So as we did last year, we're going to try to go ahead with some of our events like ice cream socials, and just depending on what we can do will just be depending on what the regulations are. We have everybody's safety in mind. We understand people have different feelings and are in different places and have different health needs. So we will try to accommodate you all as best we can. So now, one of our rules is about volunteering. The garden really runs on volunteers and it's very important. So I'm going to hand things over now to Mark Tapania. He is a longtime committee member and gardener.
Hi, my name is Mark, and been at the garden somewhere in the area of about 25 years. Was on the committee initially when it started, served for about 9 years and was off for a couple of years and came back on this year onto the committee. I am the chair of the projects and also in charge or monitoring the volunteer service. So every gardener is required to have 5 hours of volunteer service or to make a donation in lieu of that volunteer hour at the rate of $10. We are going to keep a log that we'll have up there for a service log, but we also encourage all of you to keep your own log. That way, at the end of the year, you're clear about how many hours you served, and we're not going to be, checking through the log. That's something that you should be monitoring for yourself. Now, there will be volunteer activities posted, and we'll also be contacting you in regards to volunteer activities that are available throughout the year. We have some already that we're starting to look at. We have 80 yards of soil that are being delivered. We're going to need some persons potentially to rake that out. We're looking at doing some work on permaculture in the woods. So we'll need a few people to work on that. We also have a big pile of lumber currently that needs to be sorted through. So those are some of the things right off the bat that we're going to be looking at volunteers for. We're also, though, creative with the volunteer hours. So we always are in need of plumbers or electricians or carpenters. If you have a particular skill set, that's something, again, we're always looking for. We've had 3 gardeners, again, who help with writing grants this year. And so they've already completed their volunteer hours. We've had another gardener looking at lining up some of the music performances. So those hours are going towards that. So if you do have a skill set, if you can do a fundraiser at your place of employment, the time that and energy that you put into that, creating that, can also go towards your volunteer hours. But if you do have an idea, please run it by me or one of the other committee members, so that we're aware of what it is that you're thinking of, and we can see that that's something that would be useful, helpful for the garden. One big thing I do want to say is that don't wait till 2 weeks before the garden closes to say, now what can I do for my volunteer hours, because I haven't done it throughout the year. So it's important to look for opportunities throughout the year and get them up front and throughout the year, so that you're not waiting at the last minute for something to be able to do. That's pretty much it. I'm going to pass it on to Greg.
Hello, I'm Greg Noeth. I'm the garden coordinator for about the last, I think I'm rolling into year 7. And I've been gardening at the gardens for about 26, 27 years now. Well, let's talk about the beginning of the year. As many of you have gone by in the last week or two, you've seen a lot of green grass, or you thought was weeds growing. That was actually our winter wheat. Black radish, crown vetch, and clover that we grow every year as a winter cover crop. It was mowed down over the weekend, tilled under, and trying to kill it off. But with this last 48 hours of rain, there's not help. The purpose of the ground cover, or the what we use, is our garden has been used now for 40 years as a community garden. Before that, a school garden. And before that, it was probably a farm. We don't have since everybody would like to grow things, we don't have the option of taking an area and let it lay dormant like a farmer would for a year or two. So we've done this winter ground cover as a way of improving our soil, which a number of people have come up to me over the years and have found that the garden has actually done very well with the means that we're using to improve our soil. So that gets me into the garden maintenance and what we ask of all our gardeners. And we've asked that you keep your weeds down. You can either dump them in a corner of your plot, keep the waste in your plot, or you could take it over to the compost bins, and we will have one designatedly marked for any debris or items that you would like to throw in there from your garden, such as weeds. But if you have a diseased plant, do not throw that in that compost bin. Take it home with you and throw it in your trash. The purpose is the compost will eventually be taken back out to the garden, either through spreading it with the tractor or by means of having it available for gardeners. So we don't want disease to go all over the garden. We're trying to avoid that, which also gets into fabrics. A lot of people go up to Home Depot, they find the cheapest fabric they can find, and it lasts about a month at the garden. So if you are going to go that route, I would suggest you use a very quality material, but water permeable. We don't want plastic out there. If you ever lay plastic down on your soil and you touch it on a about 100-degree day, it is about 120 degrees underneath. And that is killing off a lot of the worms, the good nutrients that we want, and that the ground cover has helped us improve the soil with. If you come by when we're tilling, you'll see a flock of birds all in the garden looking for the worms. Another, if you like to just keep your soil natural, we have items like this in the tool shed, the 4-prong rake. Mary Ellen, there's the tool. So, and we also have weed hose that we use to, you can rake and it'll break off all your weeds around your plot, around your garden. we ask that you keep your garden clean. I've had a number of people who, oh, Greg, I used 2/3 of my plot. Well, in 1/3, they let it grow to be weeds. Well, if that's the case, let me know right away, because we can grow buckwheat during the summer. We can grow other things to improve the soil rather than weeds. Weeds is not a help to all of us. So it just brings about more weeds once they flower and seed themselves. So with that, as Jennifer mentioned, Ohio State will be delivering plants to us. If you like to grow banana peppers, they are not going to be on that delivery. So I would suggest you go to your garden center, because right now, Ohio's summer sprout usually gives us green bell peppers, beefsteak tomatoes, cabbage plants, and cherry tomato plants. So if there's something special like the Roma tomatoes, the banana peppers, some of the hot peppers, I would suggest you go to the garden center now while you still can, before they're all sold out, because everybody seems to be gardening this year. If we find that a garden goes vacant for about 2-3 weeks, we will try to contact you. If we do not hear from you, we will either take it over as a hunger center plot or a plot for the that it will grow the buckwheat on, if it's too late in the season to use the plot. Once I get the whole thing tilled under and we're ready to garden, I have a list of people who volunteered to be on the plot marking committee, and you will be called at least a day or two before, so we can set up the crews to mark out the pathways. And final closeout. When the final closeout comes, a lot of people grow their sweet potatoes. Well, the sweet potato vines get caught in the tractor, and we ask that they be cut up to about 2 feet in length at the very longest, about 2 feet, because they take a while to die off and they have to be ground up. So if you have your weed blocker material, wrap that up. Your little garden labels that say what kind of tomato plant you had, please take that with you, because when we go to till up the garden at the end of the year, that just get transferred into the soil and gets carried away up and down the pathways. So all your staple pins, the straw can stay, but the bales must either be taken away or spread out the straw. You can leave your flowers, zinnias up, because after everybody leaves, the bees will have something to eat, because they're still in bloom for it could be at least 2 weeks before the heavy frost comes and kills it off. So I believe that's everything. Oh, and level off your soil too. And when you while you're gardening and as the season goes on, you'll find that you gave away all your tomatoes to all your friends. You canned up all the tomatoes you could can, and you need to you have leftover produce. We have a cart up by the shed that takes all the hunger center food. We've given over 4,000, usually average around 5,000 pounds a year, that we have volunteers who do daily deliveries to some of the food pantries in the neighborhood. And they actually look forward to our produce, because a lot of times we are the only fresh vegetables they get all year. They mostly get canned goods and stuff in boxes. So they're looking forward to us delivering. And so if you have things that are gonna go to, you can't use, please pick it, bring it up to the cart. It's over by the doors of shed 1, and it will be delivered. However, if it's rotten or it's something that you would not eat yourself, please either take it to the compost bin or leave it in your plot so it can be turned over as the season ends. And that's about it for me. And I believe Dave is up next.
Hello. Okay, I'm Dave Keebler, and I'm here to talk about the plants and seeds and other stuff that will be up at the garden. You know, usually we get the plants around June 1st, and they'll be listed on the whiteboard of how many of each plant you can get per garden. And the seeds will be out in front of the garden, and some of the first-time gardeners will be able to pick some seeds at their garden meeting. And sweet potatoes, which I saw somebody was already asking about. There will be sweet potatoes again this year. There may be a couple varieties because they're having a tough time with the growing of the sweet potatoes. And they asked that if you're planning on buying some, to possibly put your $8 in an envelope and mark it with sweet potatoes and your name on it, and put it in that white mailbox on the shed door, just so people don't have to start dealing with money. And the sweet potatoes will be there around the time the garden opens. It all depends on shipping and delivery and when we get them all up there. And then also I was told about there's a compost for sale. And I guess there's a 65-pound stacks of compost for $45 delivered to the garden. I guess you call this Jim Riley at the phone number there and place your order, and it'll be delivered up to the garden for you. And I believe that's all I have. I'm looking on my list of what to talk for. I think we're going back to Jennifer.
All right, thanks, Dave. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about soil. There's a lot that you can dig into for the soil, but we'll just talk about a few basic things about soil, why we should use soil amendments and those types of things at the garden. Soil's a complex ecosystem. It's made up of minerals, organic materials, microbes, organisms. Soil anchors your plants. It provides your plants with water and nutrients. They take them up through their roots. You can see at the bottom picture here, that's a picture of a soil food web. And that's made up of bacteria, fungus, protozoa, nematodes, microanthropods. There's all sorts of living organisms in the soil. They all play different roles. There are good things and there are bad things. And when your soil's balanced, it kind of balances it out and you have healthy plants. The reasons why we want to add soil amendments, it increases organic matter in your soil. It helps support the food web. It helps to keep your soil moist. It improves the texture and structure of the soil. It can help improve aeration, where if you have places where it gets too wet. It promotes healthy plant growth. The health of your plant really starts in the roots. If you think about it, a lot of your health depends on what you eat, what you put in your stomach. You think about it that the soil is the plant's stomach. Their roots go out and that's how they get the nutrients. If you have healthy soil, it helps reduce plant diseases. It helps reduce even insects and pests that you don't want in your soil. There are different types of soil amendments that you can use. Compost is a great all-around soil amendment. It's made from vegetable scraps, garden debris, leaves at the garden and our compost piles. Greg just put some in some of the raised beds for me that I got some strawberry plants for. We have a lot of coffee grounds in there and eggshells, things that we get from Metropolitan Coffee. They compost with us, but our compost is looking really great. It was filled with worms, just thousands and thousands of worms. It looked really good. Compost helps improve sandy and clay soils. It helps to hold the water capacity. It increases the plant's growth. It's a good idea to add compost to your gardens at the beginning of the season, and a second application about halfway through the season to give them a little bit of a boost. And it's always a good idea to add leaves to your plot at the end of the season. So if you're done with your garden and you have some leaves and stuff that you've raked up at home, I know it's a little bit early for falling leaves in the middle of October, but they're always a great addition to throw onto your plot at the end of the season, because they'll break down over the winter and you'll have those nutrients in your plot for next season. You can also use animal manures. People use cow, sheep, horse, chicken, alpacas. You want to get a manure that's well aged. You don't want something that's fresh. It will burn your plants. You want to make sure that you're getting your manure from a good source. You want to know what they're feeding their animals. You don't want to get, for instance, like the bedding materials from the horses. That type of straw would contain a lot of urine, which would not be good for your garden. There's also the vermicompost, which is worm castings. This stuff, they call it black gold. It releases nitrogen fast. It adds healthy bacteria and micronutrients to your soil. So if you can ever get your hands on some worm castings, you'll see some great results with your plants. Leaf mold is also a great additive for your plot. There's tons of leaves that we compost at the garden, which is one of the reasons I think that the compost looks so good. And leaf mold helps improve the texture of the soil, helps boost your water capacity, and adds some humus to it, so you get a little bit of aeration too, so it's the soil won't clump up. Another thing you can use around your garden, many gardeners at our garden use it, is Epsom salt. You want to make sure that when you buy it, that you're buying the type from the pharmacy that's pure magnesium, not the ones with oils and scents and those types of things added to them that you would find like in the bath section. Adding Epsom salt to your garden will increase their sulfur and magnesium, which are both good for your plants. Some other things that you can use as a boost for your plants would be a fish emulsion. You see in the picture there, this is the type that I've used. Fish emulsion is a great fertilizer. You can also use it on the leaves as a foliar spray, and it helps to add nitrogen and good bacterias. Also, you can make a compost tea. If you go online, there's different videos, different ways to do it. You can get real fancy and buy a fish pump, and put some water in there and some air into your water and move it around. But really, you can take a 5-gallon bucket, a handful of compost, and put it inside a nylon stocking, and you can make your own compost tea. You can use that too as a foliar spray, which will help put good bacteria and things onto your plants. If you see something going on, these can help fight some of the diseases that are out there. The compost tea is good. It helps stimulate root growth. It will attract worms to your part of the garden because they'll be coming and seeking the things in the compost tea. Basically, what you're doing with the compost tea is it sits there and it ferments. and the microbes in there start multiplying. So you're growing, this great enriched liquid to you're growing like you would like you think of bacteria and things. It just multiplies. So that's what you would be doing when you would make a compost tea. So as always, if you buy something that's prepackaged in the store, make sure that you're reading what ingredients are in there. Do a lot of research online and know what you're putting in your garden, because what you put into your garden is going to come out into the food that you're eating. So I want to talk a little bit about pest control. So if you look at the picture on the screen, I don't know if anybody knows what this is. Some people just see insects and they're terrified and they want to destroy and kill all the insects. When I started gardening and there were insects, pests that were eating my plants, I was told, oh, just throw some 7 on it. The problem with just using a broad insecticide, just putting it everywhere, again, is that you have your good pollinators that are coming in and they're also getting exposed to what you put on your plants. So this little guy in the picture here is actually a ladybug. It is a baby ladybug. You want ladybugs in your garden. Ladybugs are good insects. They are predators. They will eat a lot of the bad pests that you don't want in your garden. So at the garden, we unfortunately do have some pests that are commonly in our area here in Ohio. And the first one here is a squash bug. They love zucchinis, pumpkins, any type of squash. If they can't get to those, they'll attack your cucumbers and your watermelons, cantaloupes, those types of things. Then next are the thrups. And the thrups, they'll attack your cabbage, lettuce, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, spinach. They like a lot of crops. So then the next slide here, the squash vine borers. They love any type of squash, pumpkins. You can see in the picture at the bottom, it is like an orange and black. It's a moth, and that's actually the adult version. And in the top picture there, you can see the white larva. And that these moths will come, they'll lay their eggs, and they'll bore down into the stem of the plant. And you really won't, you'll have a big, beautiful zucchini, and all of a sudden you'll come and your plant will be wilted. You won't know what's going on. And it's because you have one of these guys inside of your stem, and it's damaging the stem, and the plant can't get water. The next common guy here are the aphids. Aphids will basically affect just about any type of crop. They'll get all over everything and spread pretty easily. They're pretty easy to get rid of, though, the aphids. And then our next slide, we have here the cold crop caterpillars. So when you're in the garden and you see the dainty little white moths flying around and they're visiting your garden, they are going to lay their eggs, and the result of them are these types of caterpillars, and they love to feed on cold crops, which would be your cabbage, your broccoli, cauliflower, those types, and greens, those types of things. They love to eat those. Also, flea beetles. Flea beetles can be a problem at Ben Franklin Garden. As you can see, they're very small, so and they move pretty quickly, so they're not like something you can smash. And they will make holes all over your leaves. That's how you know that they're in your garden. On this slide here, we have the infamous cucumber beetle. He comes in stripes and he comes in spots. They love cucumbers, but really they will attack anything. I've seen at the end of the season when most of the plants are pulled out and nothing but zinnias are left, and they are feeding like crazy even on the zinnias. And a lot of these pests will stay off of the flowers, but cucumber beetles will eat everything. Here we have a friend, this crazy looking creature, the tomato hornworm. They like tomatoes and peppers and anything in that family. They will start off tiny and they will feed on a plant for a day, and they'll be as big as the size of your hand. They're really a crazy looking insect out there. It's kind of scary. And then our friends, the Mexican bean beetles, they really only attack beans. As you can see, they have 3 different stages. At the bottom are their eggs. At the top is the larva, and then the adult. It looks similar to a lady beetle, but it's not. It's orange, and you can see it has an orange head also. There are many types of lady beetles, so you really want to check it out. If it's on your beans, it's probably not a lady beetle. It's probably a Mexican bean beetle. I know my first year gardening, I thought, oh, I have all these ladybugs, but no, they were bean beetles. Last but not least are the spider mites, and spider mites will basically attack any types of plants that they can get on. We do have, however, in our neighborhood have some rabbits. You'll see them hopping through the garden sometimes. And we also have the squirrels. Squirrels like to come and take one nibble out of your squash and then take a nibble out of your neighbor's squash. So those are things to look at the garden, you know, to look for the damage that they're doing. And then you'll know how to treat things. So we do have some solutions. There are natural enemies out there. There are predatory insects that will attack. Great and ones are lady beetles, ground beetles, predatory true bugs, pirate bugs, assassin bugs. Stink bugs are actually your friend. They are predatory. They will eat aphids and different things. We also have larger animals like birds and bats that help the ecosystem. Some of these bugs will attack the eggs and the larvae. Some of them, like the hoverflies and the parasoid flies, they will attach to the insects and they will lay their eggs on them or in them or near them. And then when their eggs hatch, they will get rid of the host bugs. They live off of them as hosts. So that's one of the reasons why you don't just want to spread a bunch of insecticide somewhere. You want to take a minute, you want to look and see what is actually on your plants. If you don't know what the bugs are, take a picture of them. You know, you bring a few baggies to the garden to have on hand. If you find something and you don't know what it is, throw it in a baggie so you can ask someone and identify it. There are natural things that you can plant in the garden, such as dill. Dill will repel some of these, but it will also attract good insects like the lady beetles. They absolutely love dill. Basil helps to repel pests that you don't want. I've had success in my garden keeping the rabbits out by planting marigolds all the way around my garden. One thing you have to know about animals, insects, they rely on their senses, their smells. They use their smells a lot. So sometimes you can disguise a crop that they like by planting something else with it called interplanting so that they get confused. I read online that if I planted my broccoli with my cucumbers, that I could keep the cucumber beetles away. And it was successful. The broccoli plants grow. The cucumber beetles don't know the cucumber plants are there, so that they leave them alone. So you can also plant things in the garden that will repel some of these bugs naturally. You want to start off with healthy plants. I would recommend at Ben Franklin Garden, if you're going to plant eggplants, that you bring larger plants. They have at least 4 or 5 true leaves on them, because the cucumber beetles, I'm sorry, not the cucumber beetles, the flea beetles really like to attack those early in the season. So if you wait a couple weeks to plant your eggplants and plant bigger plants, they'll be more successful at the garden. Healthy plants can also survive a little more nibbling. If you have a plant that is not looking good to start with, it's not going to do well in the end. You want to really walk around your garden. You want to inspect what you see. I had someone tell me before to talk to your plants. When you talk to someone, you generally look them in the eye. And so if you talk to your plants, you're looking at them, turn over some leaves, you know, do you see spots on it? Do you see holes anywhere? Look for signs. Try to stop things when you have a small problem instead of a full infestation. If you are looking through and you see live insects, you're going to want to try to smash them. If you see larvae, remove eggs. You want to try to do this to prevent them from increasing and spreading. Some gardeners use sticky traps. They work well on different insects. You can also use floating row covers, which is a white material. You can just lay it over some things, or you can make hoops. You can use wire just to make some simple hoops. The floating row covers actually are good for a lot of things. You can keep insects off, and you can keep things like the squirrels and the rabbits out. Rabbits like to eat the small, tender plants. So if you were planting something like broccoli, you could safely put the floating row covers off of it and just let it grow, and the rabbits wouldn't be able to come in there and munch on it. It would keep the little white moths out, and then you wouldn't get the coal caterpillars. So the floating row covers really do work good for things. If you're planting certain crops under there, though, that would need to be pollinated, you would have to remove the row covers sometimes to let the bees come in and pollinate. Nylon stockings are a great thing to have on hand. If you have a watermelon or squash, a large squash, and you don't want a bunny to come in and munch on it, or a squirrel to come and take a bite, if you take a nylon stocking, a knee-high, you can buy them at the dollar store, and just put it over the produce, it will expand, it'll grow with the melon, and the animals don't like the feel of it, so if they go to try to bite in it, they'll leave it alone. You can also use some small fencing to go around things to physically block. Neem oil is something that you can use as an insecticide. You can buy neem oil at most nurseries. It is derived from a tree, so it's deemed that it is organic. You can buy it pre-mixed, or you can buy it in a concentrate where you'd have to make your own mix. And you would use this a couple of times a week on some affected plants. Say you saw some bean beetles, you would want to go in there usually late in the evening to apply any kind of insecticide, and you would want to cover the plants with it. A lot of these pests will come in and they'll munch at night, and they're eating the leaves. So then once the neem oil's dry in the morning and the bees are out, the bees really aren't exposed to it, while the pests that are eating and munching on the leaves, they're going to be eating the neem oil. So the neem oil will kill things like the bean beetles. It will kill eggs, it will kill the larvae, and it will kill the adult bugs. There are also some organic insecticidal soaps that you can buy and that you can use. Those work good on things like thrups and aphids. There's also diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is basically crustaceans that are ground up into a fine powder. So it is organic. And it does work to kill these insects, these pests, but it will also kill the good insects and pests. You also want to read what type of diatomaceous earth you're buying. There's food grade, and there's also garden grade. The garden grade is usually used to filter water. Sometimes the garden grade has other insecticides in it, so it's something you want to stay away from. The food grade diatomaceous earth is a better choice. As you're putting it on your plants, you know, anything you would want to ingest, you would want to make sure that it's safe for you too. I do have some cards that we got from the Summer Sprout program. They have pictures of a lot of these pests on there. They will say what kind of crops they like to feed on. And they also have on the backs of the cards some tips what you can do to solve these problems. So I'm going to have these laminated, and these will be available at the garden if you need resources. And also we have the Master Gardeners. If you guys have never heard of it, many of the universities have extension programs, and out of our extension program, we have the wonderful Cuyahoga County Master Gardeners. They are offering this year to the community gardens an on-demand service. There will be signs up at the garden too, so you can see here, you can call or you can text or you can send an email. If you're at the garden, you see something on your plant, or if your plant's start not looking good, you can take a picture of it, and then you can you send it by text or by email, and someone usually gets back to you within 24 hours. They can tell you what your issue is and what you can do about it. We're also really lucky to have Master Gardeners on site. On Thursdays, they're there in the morning during the day. And if you have a question and you ask them, they're always willing to take a moment to help and see what your problem is. They also have on their website, if you check them out, they have Saturday garden gatherings. Some of them are free. Some of them cost $5 or $6, but you get really good information. You can ask a lot of questions. Everything's done by Zoom, so you don't even have to leave home. You can sit at home and watch it. They're usually on Saturday mornings. Great information. I've attended a few of them. They just had one on tomatoes. Some tips that I never knew, and some things I've kind of forgotten about over the year that can make me a better gardener. So check out their website. They really have a lot of good things on there. So then that leaves us to our questions.
All right. So got a few for you from YouTube and in the chat here. One comes from Eric Davenport. What is the possibility of opening earlier on the weekends, 7 to 8 a.m.?
Well, one of the reasons why we open at 9 o'clock is to be respectful of the neighbors around there. We do sometimes open earlier on days when it's hot out, but really 9 o'clock is time as far as when you can use tools and make noise, or that type of thing.
I was just saying if you're home.
All right. Another question here. Sorry, I just muted someone. So actually a few questions. Is crimson clover okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Someone's asking, so once you plant your garden, if you would want, some people can put down a cover crop over everything after they plant. There's different ways of gardening and planting. You can use it, in your walkways and your rows. Instead of having open dirt, you can plant a cover crop. Clover is really great to put nitrogen in the soil.
Okay. Hummingbird feeders?
I don't see why not. We're a natural habitat. I would love to see some hummingbirds in there.
All right. And I think I know the answer to this one, but someone on YouTube asked, can I live trap rabbits?
Okay, the issue with trapping is that the animals cannot be left in the traps to suffer. So if you would trap them, you would have to be there to make sure that that cage is emptied, every morning. We can't have, a rabbit out there suffering. And I will tell you, we have tried. It's very hard to catch rabbits. It's hard to get them to go into a cage when they have 3.5 acres of open produce available to them. They really don't want to go into the cages. And secondly, we catch a lot of skunks and squirrels and raccoons and those types of things. So someone, to trap them, you really would have to be responsible of, disposing of that wildlife. So it would not be something that gardeners could just do, no.
Okay. And I can answer this one. John Orsini asked in the chat here who the coordinator is for musical performances. And I would say reach out to Jim Casper. He's in charge of our events, and him and his team have been working to coordinate performances and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I think that looks like all of the questions here. I know I posted a lot of stuff in the chat throughout. I'll just say that Alicia is planning on sending out an email tomorrow with links and information. So if you missed something in the chat or something in the presentation, this is being recorded. There's also a live stream going on YouTube, so that'll also be available. And yeah, if you have any other questions or anything like that, you can email communications. I believe it's at benfranklincommunitygarden.org. Yeah, so that's what I got.
I see another question. Someone's asking about for the first year gardeners this weekend, if their family can come. We're trying to keep the group smaller. Right now we can allow for some extra people. So, if you have a co-gardener or something, we're just not trying to have too many people.
So I guess the moment everyone's been waiting for here. Let me switch the slide. There's no map. No, I'm kidding. Let me bring up the map for y'all. All right. So here, Jen can explain this here if you want.
Okay.
But long story short, as far as the map goes, this is probably kind of hard to read over a screen, unlike our traditional release, when everyone walks up to the wall and everything. So along with Alicia's email that comes out tomorrow, there's going to be an interactive link that you guys can click on, search for your plot. There's also going to be like a PDF or image that y'all can look at with this quick and dirty version of
my cucumbers here. It's long enough.
So someone's excited. So there you go.
Okay, somebody was asking where the gazebo is going to be built. The gazebo is going to be in the woods. It's hard to explain. It'll be in the woods. It's nearer to the classroom building. It'll be in the area. I don't know if you guys saw the picture online of the original gazebo. It's basically going to be in the same area there. All right. Are there any more questions? Or anything for us to answer before we go? All right, then. Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming out. It's our first time doing this virtually, so thanks you guys for bearing with us. If we have to do it again, we have a better idea of how to do things. Looking forward to meeting all of the new gardeners, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of the returning gardeners and friends. And I hope you all have a great season, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, Jennifer, it's Lisa. I have a question, but I could probably ask you about it privately when I see you.
It's up to you.
Well, I'll just ask you real quick. You know, you moved our plot over by the beehives. Is that going to be a problem with bee stings or anything? Because my husband's allergic to bees stings. So I'm just going to put that out there, but we can talk about it when I see you over the weekend or something.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like he carries an EpiPen, like
Yeah.
that's serious. So just
the
gonna put it out there.
The honeybees are normally very docile. The only time I've been stung by them there is like when I've walked into like their flight path. So they shouldn't come out and bother him. I just don't know how comfortable he is being close to them.
I don't know either. Well, if it's our only option, it's our only option for, you know, because we want 2 plots. So, I don't know. I think you have my phone number and my email, so we could.
Yeah, we'll talk
further. Okay. All right. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm actually going to end the meeting here. So give it about 10 seconds, watching the chat and all that stuff. So if not, thank you for coming to our virtual meeting.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.